This is KPIX 5 Breaking News.
Breaking news, Governor Gavin Newsom is giving his coronavirus update now.
Let's listen in
that
live.
will be made public later this evening at 6 o'clock East Coast time related to guidelines for a phased reopening of the American economy. Without getting into any details, the booklet is being sent out in real time to states large and small across this country. We haven't had time to review the booklet and the guidelines in detail, but I do want to extend just in broad strokes appreciation for what I heard from the president as it relates to recognizing the differentiation that exists and persists in terms of conditions in counties, not just in states across this nation, and a willingness to recognize and extend that very directly to governors of the need for a phased approach, a thoughtful and judicious approach based upon conditions and based upon the need to act with the kind of specificity at a state-by-state level that is required. So in broad strokes, I just want to acknowledge the words, the president and the vice president in their presentation. It's ongoing. Forgive me for having to step away, but I do want to provide our own announcements today, and we have a few people on the phone and didn't want to delay them away from their business any longer as well. Yesterday, we announced specific strategies to address the needs for unemployed Californians and to do more and do better to quickly turn around unemployment insurance checks, to set up a new PUA program, pandemic uninsured, a new system in this state for individual contractors and small individual owners of businesses. We also laid out strategies to help those that otherwise fell through the cracks in terms of the federal stimulus programs. Today, I want to talk about those essential workers that are not unemployed, that are every single day waking up and putting on their uniforms of sorts to take care of you and me. And that's the folks on the front lines of our food delivery system. I want to talk about work we're doing to support that sector and to support specifically the food chain in the state of California. When I speak of the food sector, when I think in terms of the food chain, I think about the people that grow our food, the people that pick our food, the people that pack our food, deliver our food, cook, serve, and sell our food. That's the food chain in the state of California, broadly defined. And that sector, by definition, is essential to our livelihoods and our capacity to meet just basic needs through this pandemic. And that sector in particular has been hard hit by strife, by challenges in terms of health and safety, by concerns around what is happening within food processing plants, meat packing plants, not just, by the way, in the state of California, but you've seen headlines all across America, particularly in South Dakota, related to the same. This is a serious issue, and it requires a serious response and a much more comprehensive response than we have currently offered. And so today, just an hour or so ago, I signed a statewide executive order impacting the entire food chain and entire sector that will allow for 2 weeks of supplemental paid sick leave for workers that have been, contracted COVID-19, been exposed to it, or have been exposed to isolation or quarantine orders by local health officials, federal and or state health officials. I hope this will significantly address some of the anxiety our farm workers have, anxiety our fast food workers have, anxiety around the delivery of our food and those workers have about their own health. We don't want you going to work if you're sick. And we want to make sure that you know that if you're sick, it's okay to acknowledge it, and it's okay to let your employer know and still know that you're going to get a supplemental paycheck for a minimum of 2 weeks. And so I want to just thank the grocer industry broadly. I want to thank UFCW, unions large and small, all across the state of California for working with us, and many leaders across the spectrum, including wonderful conversation I had yesterday with the Latino caucus that really brought up the importance of focusing on those that pick and pack our food as essential workers and the dignity of that work and the importance of protecting them at this time of crisis and need. But there are two people in particular I want to thank individually, representing the California Grocers Association and representing UFCW, and that is Ron Fong and John Grant. They're both on the phone, and they have done something very important, and that is they've worked across differences. They've worked together in a collaborative spirit to address some of the largest the needs of some of the largest grocery store chains in America that happen to be here in the state of California, and one of the largest grocer unions, commercial and food workers unions in America as well. And they really started to focus on the needs for sanitation, for hand washing, for breaks to do the same, to address the cleanliness of bathrooms for their workforce, and to make sure that you're protected, but those workers are protected. John Grant has been an extraordinary leader of his union, and John reminded me, and I made this point a few weeks back, that the grocery lines are also the front lines in this pandemic. The essential needs that all of us have of going to the grocery store and knowing those stores are stocked and knowing what is essential is made available in real time. When this pandemic began to take shape, all of us were struggling to respond to a little bit of binge buying, particularly toilet paper and certain types of breads and meats. That raised some supply chain concerns, some logistic warehousing concerns, not just concerns from grocery workers themselves. We reached out to the California Grocers Association. We talked about what their needs were. We reached out to the union to talk about what their needs were. And they collectively have worked out a framework to agree to a framework to support supplemental paid sick leave, and also to address these sanitation issues. But no one better to describe what they have advanced and what they have done to help me guiding the larger sector-wide executive order than the two people I'll introduce to you briefly. And I'll start with the head of the California Grocers Association, who's on the phone, and we'll make a comment or two and turn it over to John, representing the unions, and then talk a little bit more specifically about their leadership after they have a chance to talk more about what advances they've made in terms of an accord. John, are we going to start with you?
Sure.
Great. John Grant.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Governor Newsom, for everything, and for especially today recognizing the importance and the value of all the workers in the food chain and the incredible role that they're playing in keeping our communities fed. It's the public safety and the safety of all workers in our food chain, from the fields to the grocery store checkout stands, that's of critical importance. We have been proud and are proud to work collaboratively with your office and with Ron and the California Grocers Association to keep people fed and the community safe during this unprecedented crisis. Thank you again for listening to frontline workers and for granting paid sick leave to all of our food chain workers.
I appreciate that, John, and thank you for your leadership. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. I would like to ask now Mr. Fong if he's on the line to say a few words as well.
Thank you, Governor. First of all, we applaud your action, which provides some clarity and some added comfort, really, to our valued employees and customers that are a consistent set of best practices being followed for all essential retail stores in California. You know, the top priority of every grocery store has always been the health and safety of our employees and our shoppers, which has taken on, obviously, an increased importance during this public health crisis. We really welcome the opportunity to collaborate with you, your administration, industry partners, and our organized labor friends to ensure consistent standards in all essential retail stores, including grocery, which will protect employees and shoppers and to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. Thank you again, Governor, for your leadership in this opportunity.
No, again, to both you, Ron, and John, we just really extend our heartfelt thanks for all that you've done to keep those supply chains open, to continue to keep your minds open to the needs of one another. You deal at a scale unlike any other state because the size and scope of this state and your industry is just foundational to our capacity to deliver the basic needs and necessities for 40 million Californians. So again, I cannot impress upon you more and others more our gratitude to both of you for advancing that collective cause and helping again guide our larger sector-wide commitment through this executive order, again impacting not just grocery stores, but the sector-wide executive order providing the 2-week supplemental sick leave also extends to delivery services, to those larger fast food chains, as well as agricultural workers, among others. And so thank you both, and I'm very, again, grateful to our entire team, including Julie Sue, who we introduced yesterday on unemployment insurance, for all their work as well. There's an OSHA component to this as it relates to health and safety guidelines that we collectively as a group worked on together to make sure that those frontline workers are protected and healthy. And let me just make one final point about our grocery workers and our pharmacists as well, and food workers. You know, a lot of folks could easily dial it in, file for unemployment insurance, call it a day, wait for this thing to pass. But there's dignity with work, and no one that I know of in this essential workforce has done that. And with dignity comes respect and admiration because you've not only dignified yourselves as frontline grocery workers, but you've done it at a great cost. You put your personal health on the line every single day. I'll confess, myself included, sometimes we go to a grocery store, we're not always our best selves. Because of the stress all of us are bringing to bear in those lines, some large, some short, long and short. And I just want to compliment you for holding that line and continuing to help us reduce our own stresses. You're not spending much time with your kids and your families. And I just want you to know, I heard a few grocery workers say this. We're called essential workers, but increasingly we feel like we're disposable. And I want you to know you're not disposable. You are essential and you're valued. And I want, from the bottom of my heart, to extend my deep admiration and appreciation to you, those farm workers, and everybody else that every day are the unsung heroes that need to be called out at this moment for, yes, meeting